Here to discuss this left-wing media hypocrisy, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce, Washington Times columnist Monica Crowley. Look, let's be honest. Joe and Mika hate my guts. Fine, I don't hate them, but I just think they're insane. I mean, it is like a train wreck TV every day in terms of everyone on that show tries to outdo each other with Trump hate, Tammy.
Yeah.
But I'm not the thought police. I'm not the speech police. And something they would never do for a Fox opinion host is say, you know what? No, stand up when people try to boycott or stand up when people call for firings. I believe she's probably sincere in her apology. People do want to destroy her career over this. This is a problem we have in all of media. Maybe if you make a lot of mistakes, at some point, that crosses a line. What's your take?
Yeah, my column today in the Washington Times actually looks at the attacks on Kevin Hart and Mr. Murray, who won the Heisman Trophy, for remarks made years ago. And when Mr. Murray was a child. Mika Brzezinski is a middle-aged woman. She knows what she's doing. She's done television for a very long time. She's a sophisticated woman. That is a very specific phrase to use, not even just saying about it, whether it's about lifestyle or you use a word when you're a kid. She chose a phrase that was meant to dehumanize. And so that is going to speak about who she is as an individual. But at the same time, she was apologized. Ultimately, she will be given a pass because she's a liberal. And whereas Mr. Murray and Mr. Hart will probably continue to be hounded. That's the difference, is that they will move along and they will be left alone. But others, there will still be an attempt to ruin their careers, to make their lives difficult. That is the problem here. And we've seen it all along. Usually if you're on the left, you do get a pass. And this is why we can see this as being not just hypocritical, but a determination to ruin people's lives by the left. Only conservatives are those who are not conforming clearly enough. And that's the message they want to send to everyone. She'll get a pass in the end on this.
And, you know, we see this with other issues involving NBC, the recent firing of Megyn Kelly, for example, for her comments, Monica. But you have people that actually have dressed that way that still have jobs there. When she talked about that, the issue she was involved in. And I'm saying people have a choice. And they don't have to, we have to do a good show and ask people to come in. If we can come into your home, and if we're honored if we get there, people don't have to watch any one show, except this one. That's the only one.
Well, you're pointing to the staggering double standard that's been in place for a very long time, Sean, and the only way it's going to change is by Tammy and you and me and those of us who are essentially targets of it or victims of it to continually to try to expose it. I'm not a fan of the word police. The word police easily morphs into the thought police, and that is a very dangerous road to go down. We're very far down that road already, and it is a form of tyranny and fascism. So I don't believe anybody should lose a job for misspeaking or for stating something and then apologizing. But that being said, those on the left have a long history of stating anti-gay slurs and anti-gay jokes. And then when they're called on it, they usually try to minimize it, usually with a cutesy kind of tweet, as Ms. Brzezinski did today, and pray that it goes away. And it usually does go away because, as Tammy points out, they have something not available to you, me, and Tammy, which is the protection of the mainstream media. So they don't get the pile-on that we do when we misspeak or when we make a mistake. Then our lives are ruined and our reputations are tarnished, but they get a pass and they're allowed to go forward. That double standard continues to be in place, and it needs to be exposed if we're ever going to hope to see an end to it.
Tammy, what you said about the slur part of it is right, too. Nobody seems to have also paid attention to the part, the things they say about Trump there every day.
Yeah.
They speak for themselves. Mike Pompeo is a patriot serving his country.
That's right.
He's done an amazing job as Secretary of State, creating amazing opportunities for peace in the world. Again, hard things to do. Amazing job as our CIA director. And I just say, you're questioning this man's patriotism with abandon.
And she was responding on Twitter with that apology to a fellow who's a verified blue check, who I think was a photographer, who suggested to her that it would have been better if she'd called Pompeo a traitor. So the left would prefer you to be called something
pretty
that,
much did. Question his
that
patriotism.
would require an execution where you should be killed if you're a traitor to the country. That would be the legal punishment, as opposed to a gay slur. We don't want any of that. And look, if you're in media at any point in time, you've said something that you regret and that you do apologize for. Our point here is the hypocrisy on that end, is their desire to destroy other people under a guise of being a racist or a sexist or a homophobe. My first book lays out how all of that lives on the left.
I remember the book, yeah.
And that they apply it to the president especially, and that it's the name that is supposed to obliterate you. It's the hypocrisy with those individuals who don't even at least try to live and excise those kinds of phrases from their lives. And I think that's what's worth pointing out.
And you know what, Sean, into the content of what she was saying, set aside the anti-gay slur for a second. She was tarnishing President Trump and his Secretary of State for what? For trying to maintain the alliance with Saudi Arabia as they're trying to develop an anti-Iran coalition, which is a very serious and meaningful, substantial foreign policy exercise, okay? But I didn't hear in the 8 long years of President Obama, I didn't hear Ms. Brzezinski or Mr. Scarborough talk about President Obama, Secretary Clinton, Secretary John Kerry bending over backwards to align themselves with the Iranian regime of Khatami and Rouhani and Zarif. That regime is at least as bad as Saudi Arabia on human rights, if not worse. That regime has killed Americans in Iraq and elsewhere around the world, and they still target Israel and the Jews. And so I didn't hear a peep out of them on that. But here they're attacking Secretary Pompeo and the president for being traitors and all manner of offenses against the United States. I didn't hear them attacking President Obama.
Monica, a year and a half ago, John Kerry admitted that when we released that $150 billion to Iran, he admitted that some of that would likely be used for terrorism, but there's nothing we can do about it. We didn't hear any complaint from the Democrats or Nancy Pelosi or anyone else when those admissions were made. And this is where we're at with these individuals, with the left.
Thank you both. We appreciate